is NBC Palm Springs. Breaking news.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Olivia Sandusky. We do begin with some breaking news tonight. President Trump testing positive for COVID-19. Here's a live look at the White House where the president was moved just a couple hours ago. And here's an exterior look at Walter Reed Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. He tested positive late last night and is currently being treated there for the coronavirus. Now, later today, Marine One moved the president from the White House to Walter Reed Medical Center. The White House physician says the president is experiencing mild symptoms, including fatigue and a low-grade fever. Right before he left for the hospital, President Trump tweeted out this video.
I want to thank everybody for the tremendous support. I'm going to Walter Reed Hospital. I think I'm doing very well, but we're going to make sure that things work out. The First Lady is doing very well. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will never forget it. Thank you.
His voice just a bit raspy there. The president is being treated with an experimental antiviral drug. First Lady Melania Trump also testing positive. She has a cough currently. There's been no transfer of power, but earlier today, Vice President Mike Pence stood in for the president on a couple of scheduled phone calls. All of this is coming out after President Trump's aide Hope Hicks tested positive. No word on whether she's experiencing any symptoms or is positive but asymptomatic. And this raises all kinds of questions about the president's health, the presidential race, and upcoming debates. All of this on a day when the coronavirus numbers for Riverside County jumped 5 times more than yesterday. We'll get all into that in a moment. We have live team coverage with Kitty Alvarado in our satellite news center on what the president and First Lady may face with their health in the coming days. But we'll begin with Nico Payne live in La Quinta at the Republican National Headquarters with what this means for the campaign. Nico.
Good evening, Olivia. Both parties have different opinions on how the president has been handling this pandemic, but one thing they both can agree on is they believe that President Trump will not be changing his view on the coronavirus. As leaders around the world react to President Trump and the First Lady testing positive for coronavirus, here in Coachella Valley, local leaders are chiming in too.
I think everybody was kind of shocked last night, but you know what? It could happen to anybody. And I feel like the president has been very cautious about where he is and what he's doing.
I wasn't that surprised because he has spurned wearing masks. At the debate, his family were offered masks. They refused. If you look at the video, his wife, his children did not have masks on. It's unfortunate, however.
Congressman Raul Ruiz and Assemblymember Chad Mays also reacting to the news, saying it's a wake-up call to us all.
I'm praying for the health and a speedy recovery for the President and the First Lady. And I also want to take this opportunity, a wake-up call, and ask every viewer and every resident and community member to please wear your mask. Please keep physically distance of at least 6 feet or more. And please wash your hands with frequency so that we can put an end to this terrible virus.
The President of the United States is America's CEO, and anytime there's a threat to the CEO, I think it's one of those things where we all come together as a country. This is a dangerous virus, and it is no respecter of persons. So that's why public health officials have told us to wear masks, to be socially distant. If the President of the United States can be affected by this, any of us can be affected by it.
And although the president has now contracted COVID-19, a virus he has downplayed at times, both political parties feel he will not be changing his stance on the virus.
I don't think there's going to be much difference, really. Maybe a few things canceled, but I think he'll emerge in 10 days.
He is a man who does not like to admit when he's wrong. He is still refusing. He was still refusing as late as, the debate, making fun of Joe Biden for wearing a mask.
And with more on the health perspective of this breaking news, we'll send it over to Kitty Alvarado, who has more on that. Kitty.
That's right. Doctors say this is a serious diagnosis that affects everyone differently, and we just don't know enough about the disease to know what makes it mild for some and deadly for others. The President of the United States is among the more than 7 million Americans who've tested positive for COVID-19. The White House Chief of Staff says the President is in good spirits.
The President does have mild symptoms.
Then he was taken to Walter Reed Medical Center. But what are mild symptoms of the respiratory viral infection that has proven deadly for over 200,000 Americans? Michael Connors, an infection preventionist at Eisenhower Health, says the term is generic.
But typically mild symptoms are low-grade fevers, say less than 100.4 to 100.7, mild cough, body aches, no difficulty breathing.
But as the virus replicates, those mild symptoms can get severe. With coronavirus, you just don't know.
It varies quite a bit. We've had some 70-year-olds and even older who had very little or no symptoms whatsoever.
But he does fall into the higher risk category. He says his age makes him 5 times more likely to be hospitalized.
He is in an older age category and he is mildly obese. Both of those make him at higher risk for being hospitalized or dying. But most people, even with that higher risk, do recover without any major issues.
Among those who've recovered without major issues is Dr. Andrew Orden, a plastic surgeon to the stars and co-host on the TV show The Doctors.
It ain't no hoax. Trust me.
He says he had a moderate to severe case that lasted weeks. His symptoms included high fevers and body aches, but after a week, he developed a deep, persistent cough that lingered.
It's sneaky, and it's flu-like, but it's different.
He feels fortunate to have fully recovered.
I am back to 100%. I haven't let my guard down.
But his friend was not so lucky.
A dear colleague in his 60s, he just passed from COVID-19. So this hit us hard.
Both wish the president a full and speedy recovery and hope this will serve as a reminder to stay vigilant.
We're all ready for this to be over. Unfortunately, it's not, and we really need to stay on our game.
Now's not the time to drop our guard.
And now one thing both medical experts can agree on is that what's in the president's favor is that he's getting the best care and treatment possible, which includes around-the-clock monitoring. And we certainly hope that the president's symptoms remain mild, and we wish him and the First Lady a very speedy recovery. Live from the Satellite Center, Kitty Alvarado, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Kitty. And with the news of President Trump testing positive, questions are swirling about who he could have been exposed to and the testing protocols that are being undergone. Some health experts take this opportunity to remind the public that just because a person tests negative now, it doesn't mean that they're in the clear.
There is still a chance that someone can test negative who is actually positive for the virus. The bottom line is anywhere from 2 days to 14 days after exposure, a person can become symptomatic and or test positive.
Health experts say that a test gives you a sense of whether you have the virus at that moment in time, but it's not a pass to stop taking preventative measures. Anyone who is exposed is urged to quarantine for 2 weeks. Now, having said all of this, here's a look at the coronavirus numbers for Riverside County and the entire Coachella Valley. As we mentioned earlier, we're seeing a huge jump in cases, more than 5 times what we reported yesterday. 446 new cases were reported countywide, 74 of those from the Coachella Valley, 5 new deaths in the county, 2 of those from our valley. And despite the news about a spike in numbers and how the president and first lady tested positive, a group of parents is holding a demonstration at Palm Desert High School tonight. They say they want schools reopened. Our Regina Ureta is there live. Regina, tell us what's going on out there.
Olivia, I'm actually across from Palm Desert High School, where it remains closed and has been closed for several months now. And what you're seeing behind me is families who are rallying against this closure, not only Palm Desert High School, but all the schools in the county. They're frustrated, and they say that enough is enough. Open up the schools now. Some of the signs read, open schools back to classrooms, and education is essential. Now, I talked to a mother earlier, and she said that online learning is just not working, and they're worried for their children's mental health. And I actually have a student here who's a senior and is currently taking online classes for Palm Desert High School. Cole, thank you so much. So you did say earlier that it's just been very challenging to adapt to this new education system. So tell me a little bit about your experience.
It's just really hard to wake up every day and get into class. Just seeing everyone's morale just really down is hard for everyone, I think.
And despite obviously a spike here in of coronavirus, there is a risk. But you're here urging to open schools up. Do you think that with proper precautions, it could actually happen?
Yes, I think of course it could happen. I think all the teachers, all the kids would take every precaution they could to get us back into school. I feel like every kid would follow the rules. If that means sitting 6 feet away, not having a lunch, not being able to socialize with everyone, it would just help us in the long run for a better education.
Thank you so much, Cole. And like I said, obviously they're here rallying against the school closures here in the county. They've said that they're going to be here for a few hours now. Some of the cars that have been passing by, they have been honking, they've been cheering. There's actually families who have come out and just share the experience too of this education system. For now, that's all I have. Olivia, back to you.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
All right, thank you, Regina. Those parents out there being met with some warm temperatures. You can see now on our Agua Caliente Casino Cam a live look as the sun starts to go down on this Friday night. We'll send things over to NBC Palm Springs meteorologist Jerry Steffen with your AccuWeather forecast.
Well, the Coachella Valley saw another hot one earlier today, 113. That's well above average. Not a record for Palm Springs. That would have been 115, but several records were set. We'll have more of that coming up in the full forecast. Today, basically high pressure kept us above average. That'll be the case again tomorrow. Again, straddling 110 tomorrow afternoon. A lot of sunshine, dry air at the surface. Dew points will be in the 20s. Triple digits will start as early as 10:30, 11 o'clock tomorrow and peak at around 4 in the afternoon. Here's a sample of what you can expect tomorrow. Saturday, lots of sunshine. 110 Palm Springs, 97 Joshua Tree. At or slightly above 100 degrees in the San Antonio Pass cities, and Big Bear at 79. A Comfort Air 3-day forecast puts us at 110 tomorrow, and then the numbers come down, but only a little bit. 107 on Sunday with lots of sunshine. A few high clouds move in on Monday with a high of 107. We'll take a look at what we can expect moving into the next week in October in the full forecast just minutes away.
Joining us now is NBC Palm Springs political analyst Hank Plant. Hank, what a time. Something we really haven't ever seen happen here with the president. Doctors are monitoring the president at Walter Reed Medical Center. There's been no transfer of power to the vice president. But having said that, what does this all mean right now for the presidential race?
Well, the race is on hold. I mean, the campaign is on freeze frame right now, especially on the Trump side. I mean, the president has canceled his upcoming events for the next couple of weeks. He was supposed to be in Wisconsin this weekend. That's not going to happen. Joe Biden will have to be careful about how he campaigns against President Trump because you can't knock the president, which has been part of the Biden strategy. So the campaign is essentially over at this point.
And I know we've got the debate supposed to be coming up next week. We've got the election coming up in November. Does this delay that timeline at all? Do you think we'll see possibly a later election this year?
No, I don't think you'll see the election changed. That has to happen. That's in the Constitution. I think the debates, that's a good question, Olivia. I don't know if they will happen or not. The next debate is supposed to be October 15th. That's only 2 weeks from now. The next vice presidential debate is supposed to be this coming Wednesday. That will probably still go on, I would guess, but I wouldn't count on the last two presidential debates happening.
Do you think there's any chance those could go on remotely, or what do you think comes next if, let's say, President Trump continues to be sick for, we've seen people have this for a few weeks, maybe even a month. What if he's, incapacitated for a lengthy period of time?
You're asking the million-dollar question, because at what point does the 25th Amendment kick in, which covers what happens when the president is incapacitated? At that point, the cabinet has to get together and decide whether to transfer the power to the vice president. These are very good questions. I don't even think the White House knows the answers to those questions.
And do you see, with President Trump contracting coronavirus, we've seen a mix of reactions from across the country. Some people not even believing that he has it, some, very sympathetic to him. What do you see as general reaction to him right now? It's a very crucial time in the year. Is this helping or hurting his campaign?
I think it's hurting because his hardcore supporters bought into his not taking the virus seriously, making the masks a political issue, and now they have been proven wrong. And so I think that this hurts his campaign. I think that it might even cause some of those Trump supporters to stay home and just wash their hands of the whole thing.
All right, Hank, anything else like to add about this topic? Anything with, the uncertainty coming here in the next couple of weeks?
I think the last thing to say is this did not need to happen. I mean, President Trump downplayed the virus. He downplayed the masks. We're told that the people who work in the White House, which is a very small space, they did not wear masks. They did not wear masks on Air Force One. He kind of brought this on himself. I hate to say it that way, but he just never took it seriously, and this is the consequence.
All right. Well, Hank, thank you for joining us tonight. We always appreciate having you on our newscast. And coming up next here on NBC Palm Springs, you've already heard that President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump have both tested positive for coronavirus. But what about those around him, including Vice President Mike Pence and his opponent Joe Biden? We'll tell you about their statuses after the break. Plus, we talked to economist John Paul Valdez about the economic implications of the president testing positive and what you should expect the markets to look like going into the weekend when we return. So now that we know President Trump and the First Lady have both tested positive for COVID-19, let's take a look at the status of other top officials. Vice President Mike Pence has tested negative. According to the Vice President's press secretary, he and the Second Lady were tested this morning. Both tested negative. The Vice President has been undergoing daily testing for months. And an update of the family of President Trump, Ivanka Trump, her husband, and Trump advisor Jared Kushner, and 14-year-old son Barron Trump all tested negative this morning as well. We don't yet know about other family members like Tiffany, Don Jr., or Eric Trump. This morning, Ivanka tweeted, "Praying for the swift recovery of my father and Melania and for all those impacted by COVID-19 as they fight this fight together." Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden confirms that he and his wife Jill have both tested negative for COVID-19. Earlier this week, Biden and President Trump faced off in their first debate. NBC News reports vice presidential nominee Senator Kamala Harris and her husband have also tested negative. Biden and Harris will both continue with planned campaign trips after testing negative. Biden visited Grand Rapids, Michigan today. He was scheduled to depart this morning but had to be tested first. After testing negative, the decision was made to continue on with the campaign. Senator Harris also continued as planned today with a campaign trip to Las Vegas. Meanwhile, for the Trump campaign, the schedule is being upended. The campaign released a statement saying all scheduled campaign events are being moved to virtual or are temporarily postponed, and all events involving his family are now postponed as well. The statement says Vice President Pence will resume his scheduled campaign events after testing negative. Supreme Court Justice nominee Amy Coney Barrett tested negative today for COVID-19. Judge Barrett was with President Trump last weekend at the White House when he officially nominated her for a spot on the Supreme Court. She has tested daily for COVID-19. Barrett has been on Capitol Hill this week meeting individually with Republican senators and is expected to continue meetings next week. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi spoke this morning after President Trump tested positive. She said she has been tested for COVID-19, but a result has not come back yet. The Speaker has been engaged in negotiations with Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin this week, who works closely with the president. However, he has disclosed he tested negative for the virus.
This is tragic. It's very sad. But it also is something that going into crowds, unmasked and all the rest, was sort of a brazen invitation for something like this to happen. Sad that it did, but nonetheless hopeful that it will be a transition to a saner approach to what this virus is all about.
Pelosi says that she will continue to pray for the president and knows that he will have the best care available. We'll take a live look now from our Agua Caliente casino cam. A nice view as that sun sets here on a Friday. When we come back, Jerry has your full forecast. Stay with us. Let's take a live look now from our Walter Clark Highway 111 cam. And believe it or not, we're heading into the first weekend of October, although it may not feel like it out there quite yet. Let's send things over to NBC Palm Springs meteorologist Jerry Steffen to break down your forecast.
Once again, we notched up another triple-digit day in early October. 113 the high in Palm Springs, 115 the record. Didn't meet that record, but there were several other cities that did break records. Thermal, 113, second day in a row. Thermal set a record. Indio at 111. Even Idlewild hit 93, tying a record set back in 1980. Clear skies on our satellite imagery, radar quiet as well. Just a very dry weather forecast for us over the next couple of days. Overnight lows, very comfortable in the 70-degree range, but you know it's going to be another hot one tomorrow with that ridge of high pressure still sticking around. So about 15 degrees above average tomorrow. Lots of sunshine, a dry northeasterly flow into our Saturday forecast. And again, it's going to be a very quick warm-up. Triple digits begin as early as 10:30 tomorrow, and we'll see those relative humidity numbers in the single digits, dew points in the 20s tomorrow afternoon. Here's what we can expect around Southern California. 110 Saturday under sunshine, Palm Springs, 108 at Indio, 101, 29 Palms, 103 at Cabazon. Then things change a little bit. Sunday, that ridge of high pressure that brought us the 110s, that weakens a little bit, but just dropping temps a few notches, 105 to 108 on Sunday afternoon. And Monday, same range of temps, but with the addition of a few high clouds. Yeah, today, tomorrow, Sunday, expecting lots of clear skies. A few high clouds move in above 25,000 feet. We'll see a little extra cirrus cloud cover on Wednesday. Filtered sunshine for the Coachella Valley. Surface moisture has been very dry. That'll continue tomorrow, although those dew points inch up to mid-30s, relatively dry through early next week for the Coachella Valley. Marie is our latest named storm. Major category 4 hurricane. It's going to make its way to the west-northwest and eventually turn its way to the north as a ridge of high pressure begins to steer it toward the coastline. When that happens, it'll begin to bring some rain along the west coast. When will that happen? Well, let's track it right now. You can see it moving west-northwest, a little bit to the north, and approaching front will steer it to the coastline. And not this weekend, but the next, we could see some rain in parts of central and northern California. No rain for us, but it will drop temps. We'll see some mid-90s, again, a little over a week away. 137 days today of triple-digit highs for Palm Springs. We'll add to that total. Here's that Comfort Air 7-day forecast. 110 tomorrow, pair of 107s Sunday and Monday, and then 102s Thursday and Friday, some 90s, a little over a week away.
Joining us now is economist John Paul Valdez. And John Paul, it's been a wild 24 hours since we heard that President Trump has contracted COVID-19. We saw markets were down to start the day. They rebounded and closed down ultimately. What can we kind of expect going into the weekend and on Monday?
Right. Today has been a big news day. We had two main stories. Obviously, the president testing positive for coronavirus and then later in the afternoon being taken to the hospital is a major concern. The markets were down on that news because it was announced that he was positive last night. So the markets were a little down. They recovered pretty much during the day on news that Pelosi and Mnuchin have almost come to an agreement on the stimulus package. It's thought that each side in that negotiation can benefit from an agreement. And then we could discuss some of the parameters of those agreements. If they reach an agreement, then we will see a positive movement in the market, most likely. I also always tell clients and people that I know, you never really want to look at the market in a single day. You really want to look over a week or over a month or over a year, for that matter. So watch the volatility. You don't want to make knee-jerk decisions based on any particular news, no matter how dramatic. Investing is always a strategy, not a tactile decision.
Good advice there. And as you mentioned, the market has been reacting pretty volatile there to President's help. But we have a system in place to account for kind of anything that happens. Why has it been so reactive to the news of President Trump contracting coronavirus?
In theory, when you study economics, they say the markets are perfect. They really reflect all things past and all things future. What is happening right now is, I believe what I have seen is that the market has already baked in a change or a continuance of the current presidency. So regardless of who wins and so on and so forth, the fact that there is a possibility of a change there has already been a little bit baked in. This is throwing us off that cycle because that decision won't be made till January 20th next year. And today, the news that he's going into the hospital, we don't know what's going to happen between today and January 20th. So that gives us a lot of interim volatility. But I, again, advise people to see such events in the longer term. No one person is really that important as much as we may think so from watching the news. The nation is stable. The economy is relatively stable overall when you're talking about 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And the market has already baked in a possible change during the election. That's my firmest belief.
All right. Well, thank you for that input, John Paul Valdez. And of course, we'll be watching the foreign markets as well as they open back up on Monday. A pretty wild time here in 2020. We'll be right back after this break. President Trump and the First Lady have tested positive for coronavirus and are experiencing mild symptoms. And late this afternoon, President Trump was airlifted to Walter Reed Military Hospital for precautionary measures. The stunning revelation raises concerns about the president's health and threatens to create chaos just 32 days before the election. Alice Barr has the latest.
Hours after revealing to the world that he and the First Lady have tested positive for COVID-19, President Trump, flashing a thumbs up and wearing a mask, boarded Marine One for the short flight to the military's Walter Reed Medical Center for monitoring of his condition. It's the most serious health threat to a U.S. president in decades, though the White House describes it as a precaution, posting a recorded message moments after the president left.
I think I'm doing very well, but we're going to make sure that things work out.
The White House physician says the president was fatigued but in good spirits and given an antibody cocktail as a precaution. The doctor says the First Lady has only a mild cough and headache. At 74 and overweight, the president is considered at higher risk for serious complications.
So the next few days will be critical to monitoring the president.
Now begins a high-stakes hunt for anyone President Trump has had contact with during a busy week, including Tuesday night's debate, during which the Trump family violated a mandatory mask mandate. The president's senior advisor, Hope Hicks, who traveled with him this week, tested positive yesterday. The White House chief of staff saying today they learned of her diagnosis as President Trump was leaving for a New Jersey fundraiser last night.
It was deemed safe for the president to go. He socially distanced.
Hours before revealing his diagnosis, the president downplayed coronavirus in a pre-recorded message for a charity event.
I just want to say that the end of the pandemic is in sight.
Democratic rival Joe Biden tested negative today and made the decision to drop all negative campaign ads while President Trump fights his battle with coronavirus. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
So now that we know President Trump and the First Lady have tested positive for COVID-19, let's take a look at the status of some other top officials. Vice President Mike Pence has tested negative. According to the Vice President's press secretary, he and the Second Lady were tested this morning. Both were negative, as well as his wife there. The Vice President has been undergoing daily testing for months. Now on to an update for the family of President Trump, Ivanka Trump, and her husband, Jared Kushner. 14-year-old Barron Trump all tested negative this morning. We don't know yet about other family members like Tiffany, Don Jr., or Eric Trump. This morning, though, Ivanka tweeted, "Praying for the swift recovery of my father and Melania and for all those impacted by COVID-19 as they fight together." Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden confirms that he and his wife Jill have both tested negative for COVID-19. Earlier this week, Biden and President Trump faced off in their first debate. NBC News reports Vice presidential nominee Senator Kamala Harris and her husband have also tested negative. We'll take a live look now from our Agua Caliente casino cam. You can see a little bit of haze out there on the horizon for our Friday. We'll send things over to Jerry Steffen to break down your forecast.
Well, the Coachella Valley saw another hot one earlier today, 113. That's well above average. Not a record for Palm Springs. That would have been 115, but several records were set. We'll have more of that coming up in the full forecast. Today, basically high pressure kept us above average. That'll be the case again tomorrow. Again, straddling 110 tomorrow afternoon. A lot of sunshine, dry air at the surface. Dew points will be in the 20s. Triple digits will start as early as 10:30, 11 o'clock tomorrow and peak at around 4 in the afternoon. Here's a sample of what you can expect tomorrow. Saturday, lots of sunshine. 110 Palm Springs, 97 Joshua Tree. At or slightly above 100 degrees in the San Gorgonio Pass cities, and Big Bear at 79. A Comfort Air 3-day forecast puts us at 110 tomorrow, and then the numbers come down, but only a little bit. 107 on Sunday with lots of sunshine. A few high clouds move in on Monday with a high of 107. We'll take a look at what we can expect moving into the next week in October in the full forecast just minutes away.
All right, thank you, Jerry. A new study is debunking the myth that wearing a face mask is a potentially hazard for your health. There have been claims that face masks can trap carbon dioxide and lead to carbon dioxide poisoning. Scientists say that scenario is very unlikely. They looked at changes in oxygen and carbon dioxide level while wearing masks and found the effects were minimal. The National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine have released its final recommendations on how a vaccine should be distributed. You can see the different phases on your screen. The committee also recommends that special efforts are made to distribute the vaccine to people in more vulnerable areas, like communities with a higher proportion of racial minorities. With news of President Trump's positive COVID-19 diagnosis, questions are swirling about testing and other high-ranking officials and who may have been exposed. Health experts are warning that it may take days for some tests to detect the virus, making preventative measures critical right now. Sarah Dolph has the story.
The president and first lady now counted among coronavirus cases in the U.S. Many members of their teams and those at the debate Tuesday testing negative, but health experts cautioning they're not in the clear.
There's a possibility that these negative tests will become positive.
COVID-19 is thought to incubate for up to 2 weeks. Test too early and there might not be enough virus particles to register.
There is still a chance that someone can test negative who is actually positive for the virus. The bottom line is anywhere from 2 days to 14 days after exposure, a person can become symptomatic and or test positive.
After exposure, health experts recommend waiting 3 to 4 days before getting tested. And the FDA says negative antigen results should be confirmed with molecular tests, especially if the person has symptoms and recently attended a large gathering.
That's the deep concern here. Do they just not have the right testing accoutrements, that right rapid test, to make sure that they have the confidence that the test result is actually accurate?
The maker of the test, often used by the Trump administration, defending its accuracy today. Regardless of testing method, health experts are urging anyone who may have been in close contact with the president over the last few days to use extreme caution.
That test gives you a sense of whether you have the virus in that moment in time. It is not a silver pass. It is not a gold pass to just let you go on and not take those other preventive measures.
Measures including masking and social distancing. Sarah Dolph, NBC News.
Coming up next on NBC Palm Springs, we've got postseason action going on in multiple sports tonight. NBC Palm Springs sports anchor Brandy Flores will break all of that down for us. Stay with us.
NBC Palm Springs Sports Desk, brought to you by Agua Caliente Casinos. We have your game. It's time. Let's push play.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Brandy Flores and it's time for some sports. MLB Playoffs started this week. The Padres are taking on the St. Louis Cardinals right now in the final game of the NL Wildcard Series. Score is 1-0 Padres in the top of the 7th. After starting out game 1 pretty flat, the Padres were able to rally late in the game yesterday to force this game 3. Whoever wins moves on to play the Dodgers in the National League Division Series next week. The Dodgers just swept Milwaukee in their Wildcard Series. Kershaw shut down the Brewers yesterday through 8 innings with 13 strikeouts. This means that we could have a Southern California playoff series. Since the Clippers ruined our dreams already, really hoping the Padres can make this one happen. The Lakers are underway with Game 2 of the NBA Finals. They are already up 1-0 over Miami. At the end of the first quarter, it was 29-23 in favor of the Lakers. Lakers looked extremely dominant the other day and are hoping to keep that going tonight. It also helps for the Lakers that Miami has 2 of its key players out due to injuries. Bam Adebayo with a shoulder strain and Goran Dragic with a foot injury. We hate to see injuries, but Miami speculates Bam and Dragic to be back for Game 3. So if you're the Lakers, it would be wise to lock this game up while they still have the edge. That sounds pretty bad when I say it that way. Moving on, the WNBA begins their championship final series today. The Seattle Storm taking on the Las Vegas Aces. Love that name. The first quarter was close, but Jewel Lloyd and Breanna Stewart dominated and helped Seattle pull away by the end of the first half with a combined 35 points. And can't forget about Sue Bird with 10 assists in the first half alone. The Aces caught up in the second half, making it a close game once again. But then it was all Breanna Stewart, and she was going to leave this game with 37 points and 15 assists, and Sue Bird would earn 16 assists, both new WNBA playoff records. The Seattle Storm takes Game 1 93-80. That's all I have for now, and for NBC Palm Springs Sports, I'm Brandy Flores. Mike is up next with a check on your forecast. Stay with us.
Let's take a live look now from our Walter Clark Highway 111 cam. Starting to get dark out there as we enter the first weekend of October here in 2020, but still hot outside. We'll send it over to NBC Palm Springs meteorologist Jerry Steffen with your Accuweather forecast.
Once again, we notched up another triple-digit day in early October. 113 the high in Palm Springs, 115 the record. Didn't meet that record, but there were several other cities that did break records. Thermal, 113, second day in a row. Thermal set a record. Indio at 111. Even Idlewild hit 93, tying a record set back in 1980. Clear skies on our satellite imagery, radar quiet as well. Just a very dry weather forecast for us over the next couple of days. Overnight lows, very comfortable in the 70-degree range, but you know it's going to be another hot one tomorrow with that ridge of high pressure still sticking around. So about 15 degrees above average tomorrow. Lots of sunshine, a dry northeasterly flow into our Saturday forecast. And again, it's going to be a very quick warm-up. Triple digits begin as early as 10:30 tomorrow, and we'll see those relative humidity numbers in the single digits, dew points in the 20s tomorrow afternoon. Here's what we can expect around Southern California. 110 Saturday under sunshine, Palm Springs, 108 at Indio, 101, 29 Palms, 103 at Cabazon. Then things change a little bit. Sunday, that ridge of high pressure that brought us the 110s, that weakens a little bit, but just dropping temps a few notches, 105 to 108 on Sunday afternoon, and Monday, same range of temps, but with the addition of a few high clouds. Yeah, today, tomorrow, Sunday, expecting lots of clear skies. A few high clouds move in above 25,000 feet. We'll see a little extra cirrus cloud cover on Wednesday. Filtered sunshine for the Coachella Valley. Surface moisture has been very dry. That'll continue tomorrow, although those dew points inch up to mid-30s, relatively dry through early next week for the Coachella Valley. Marie is our latest named storm. Major category 4 hurricane. It's going to make its way to the west northwest and eventually turn its way to the north as a ridge of high pressure begins to steer it toward the coastline. When that happens, it'll begin to bring some rain along the west coast. When will that happen? Well, let's track it right now. You can see it moving west-northwest, a little bit to the north, and approaching front will steer it to the coastline. And not this weekend, but the next, we could see some rain in parts of central and northern California. No rain for us, but it will drop temps. We'll see some mid-90s, again, a little over a week away. 137 days today of triple-digit highs for Palm Springs. We'll add to that total. Here's that Comfort Air 7-day forecast. 110 tomorrow, pair of 107s Sunday and Monday, and then 102s Thursday and Friday, some 90s, a little over a week away.
final jobs report before the November election was released today. Non-farm payrolls rose by 661,000 in the month of September. This represents a slide from the 1.5 million jobs added in August and the 4.8 million jobs added in June. The unemployment rate currently sits at 7.9%. Many analysts say the U.S. economy is headed in the right direction, but more slowly than they were hoping for, and the momentum is slowing. Amazon says more than 19,000 frontline workers in the U.S. have had COVID-19. That's about 1.5% of the e-commerce giant's total workforce. Amazon has added temperature checks, social distancing measures, and other safety procedures at its facilities. Black Friday has been losing steam for years, but was last year's Black Friday the final one? Speculation is growing that the coronavirus pandemic may be the final straw for the shopping blitz that is traditionally kicked off after the Thanksgiving holiday. In recent years, Black Friday's importance has faded. More retailers have offered similar sales online, making it possible for shoppers to browse and buy from home rather than having to camp out in store parking lots overnight. We'll be right back after this break. Stay with us.
Brighter Side of the News is brought to you by Holland RV, located off the I-10 at Washington.
On the brighter side of the news, NASA is asking the public for help discovering new planets. A website called Planet Patrol allows people to collaborate with astronomers to hunt for new worlds. Members of the public will be sorting through images collected by NASA satellites. Now, over the course of a year, hundreds of thousands of snapshots are captured, but it's way too many for scientists to examine without some help. Volunteers will answer questionnaires as they sift through images to help researchers narrow down the list of potential planets. That sounds like a perfect quarantine COVID-19 project to me and a fun time. All right, that does it for us at 6 o'clock. We'll see you again at 11.